Boom, boom, boom. Just waiting for it to click in here and we'll be good to go.
Nice. Nice.
All right, everybody. Hey, what's going on? This is Bad Publicity. This is Season 4, Episode 15, Near Earth Hub 2.0 version guide. Hollis, what's going down, man?
Hey man, what's up? I've not a whole heck of a lot's been happening. Still work the same job. Still get down to business. Still play Netrunner. That's pretty much my game plan on a daily basis. What about you, man?
Pretty good game plan, if you ask me.
Yeah, right.
I think you are asking me.
Yes.
Things are good, dude. I mean, anybody who follows the show pretty good always sees this little blue bird sitting on my hat, and my team just clinched division tonight.
Nice.
You know?
Congrats. You made it.
Yeah, sometimes we do. Every 20 something years, Toronto does something.
You should celebrate. You should go out and celebrate by playing this NEH deck a lot and just winning and smashing face.
I want to celebrate tonight because you know what? Also today is
What is it?
hashtag National Podcast Day.
What? Did we really? That really just happened? That's a thing?
It's podcast day today, man.
Well, oh my God.
And
Man,
what better way to do it than it just so happened to land it on a Wednesday, which is Bad Publicity Wednesday nights here, and it couldn't have been any sweeter. Everyone who's joining in, thank you very much because it's podcast day and you're celebrating hanging out with a podcast.
We just keep winning. I like how it falls on the national day for us to do what we do. I dig that. Totally dig it. So good.
Well, what we did is we came here to talk about NEH 2.0. This episode here, we're going to do things a little differently. We're going to step up and kind of do like a guide, like a new player teaching guide, or
Cool.
People that have their NEH and just want to, put a wrench to it, give it a tune-up. We're going to walk through. This is kind of a version that you piloted extremely well in a recent tournament. So why don't I turn it over to you? You can talk about the tournament you piloted it in, and
Sure.
just talk about the deck idea in general. Just here's the introduction.
Yeah. So, it's no surprise. Like NEH Fast Events decks have been really, really strong and pretty solid for a long period of time. Even if you're running like a very efficient Kate deck that we've seen or noise, the fact is NEH with a really good draw is always going to be an uphill battle to win. And I think really some of the best runners are, in addition to Kate and noise, are like Max against it. So the question is, with Fast Events decks already being really, really good, how do you kind of leverage what they already do to have an additional advantage? And really, can they be faster and can they be more efficient? And with the release of a few extra cards lately, I think we actually just hit that point. I was at the SMC finals for the ANR Pro Circuit, and I actually piloted a version of this NEH Fast Events deck. It is different than what it is now, but throughout the at least throughout the Swiss, that deck in particular went completely undefeated through all 5 rounds of that Swiss. Not 7, right? But it's still notable that the deck went undefeated. And I've talked to other players also that have been running decks very similar to what I piloted, and also with a few variations, and they're reporting the same level of success with how well the deck does. Sometimes it can just win. It has tough matchups, but in general, I think the deck is definitely Worlds caliber. I think it's a Tier 1 archetype. So if you're going to Worlds or you're looking for a competitive deck just to tool around with and play with, NEH Fast Advance has always been a choice, but I think this particular style of the deck is the new correct direction, and I think it's worth taking a look at.
Right. This is the like we said, the tune-up version, utilizing a couple new cards. It's important to note too. Maybe we should have hit this at the top of the I don't know, it's the top of the hour. This is going to use a new card, and I know people have said before they're like a spoiler alert for those people who are trying to stay immune to the spoilers. This is
Good luck.
this is yeah, this is a tuned up version using one card from Data and Destiny to build out the agenda suite.
Right.
So, with that being said, so you've got the intro. Let's dive in and look at the build itself. Kind of break it down here. Let's look at some card choices and stuff. We're starting here with, this is the new agenda that you have tucked in here. This is 15 minutes. It's a 2-for-1.
Yep.
Great ability for those that haven't seen this yet. You can spend a click, shuffle 15 minutes into the R&D. The corp can trigger this ability while 15 minutes is in the runner's score area. Now limit one of these per deck. I'm just going to run the agendas down quickly. The rest are all very common. You got 3 Astro scripts after that, 3 breaking news, 2 NAPD contract, and 3 Project Beal. That's 12 agendas out of the 49 cards here for a total of 20 agenda points. So, Hollis, you want to talk through the choices here? Obviously, don't talk me through, like, Astro script, core set card. It's going to be, impossible to shake this out of an NBN deck.
Right.
You got the other 3 twos that synergize with the Astro scripts for easy scoring, 2 pointers. NAPD is nothing new in Near Earth Hub build. Great at taxing it. You don't even have to score it if you don't want to.
Right.
The interesting parts of this build is that it's running 4 1-point agendas.
Yeah.
So this is new for an NBN deck.
Correct. Yeah, I mean it's a little different. I mean, generally, the suite we always see, right, is the 3 Astro, 3 Bill, 3 NAPD or so, and then the 2X of breaking news, because that gives you, basically right at 20 points with as few agendas really as you can afford with the fast advanced strategy. The reason for this many 1-pointers, however, especially since they're all 2-1s, it's 2 reasons. One, it means that every single one of those agendas can be scored directly out of hand without a large commitment or worry. So, especially for cards for the meta where it's largely, the Kate decks are largely playing Clot, and even Noise decks now, of course, are playing Clot. You have the ability to kind of throw down an agenda, attempt to score it, and basically challenge the runner and say, hey, do you want to go grab this Clot right now so that I don't get 1 single point? This is especially really powerful for a card like 15 minutes, where you can go install, advance, and just wait for them to react. So are you going to do anything? If yes, they still do 15 minutes, and you can simply throw it back into your deck later. Or you can, you get the free 1 point that you're hoping to get. And because all the information's face down, they really aren't sure, what agenda it is. It could be the build, it could be the Astro, or it could be the, something like the 15 minutes. The other big reason why there's so many 2-1s are because of the card team sponsorship. The whole deck runs with, primarily because of that. And I'm sure we'll talk about that shortly. But in short, I wanted to be able to make sure that I got as many cards that could trigger off of team sponsorship as possible. And having 4 2-1s was the easiest way to ensure that.
Perfect. Anybody watching, feel free to jump in anytime at any section with a question. This is on the fly, and you might have a great question that someone else is wanting to ask. So I'll put on my teacher's cap and say there's no such thing as a stupid question right now. We did promote this as a learning tool for new users, this guide, as well as people who just want their decks tuned up and stuff. So please, if you're a new user and you have questions about this build, start hammering that chat. Or wait till we get to the section. Where are your product placements?
Product placement is a very good card. I think when we get to do you want to talk about it now, or do you want to wait till we get to the operations and the?
We can,
upgrades.
yeah, we can wait it out. We can make Zach wait a few minutes, Zach. So yeah, so there's your agendas. All pretty straightforward, all good. Is there anything else that you've seen in Data and Destiny that you think are going to slot in here? Like any changes that we are going to make, other than the 15 minutes? Because this is untested, right? Like there was in the last tournament another 1-point agenda that was slotted in there, so we know that the synergy of having the 1-pointer, it's not going to change the deck up. We just slotted it 1 power for 1 power. But what are your feelings on the rest of the agenda suite sitting in Data and Destiny here? Is there anything that can move in and out here, or is this the new suite and it's got to stay this way?
Well, the primary agenda that I really haven't had a chance to play with this deck has actually been Global Food Initiative. It's really uncommon, I think, that it'll be an agenda that you score, but I also feel like it's very powerful in that, you know, with the combination of multiple Astro counters and you know, considering you add in Sand, it's the kind of card that may actually end up closing the game. It also helps reduce the agenda density a little bit by having a card like that. I mean, and then on top of that, if the runner takes it right, they only get 2 points. So it's like having an, you know, it's the other NAPD, you know, that could be worth 3 for you. So, I think that's an interesting, like, I guess, agenda to slot in. But to be honest with you, I'm actually, in general, I'm just happy with this agenda spread. Having 12 agendas is a lot of agendas, but when you start to realize how fast the deck is, and the fact that it's a lot of ones, you know, it gets to the point where, you know, the Corp is usually scoring, you know, 4 total agendas to close out the game, maybe even, you know, crazy enough, maybe even 5, right? So I like having the agenda spread like this because I feel like the Global Food Initiative play is probably going to happen less often than simply just scoring 2-for-1s to trigger team sponsorship, because it's not as combo-y, it's definitely more reliable. And so I felt like that's a more safer play. I do think, though, if someone wants to play around with that, it's probably worth taking a look at.
You know, we had a comment for Zach about the agendas here, and he says, I'm not sure 15 minutes adds enough to justify the 12th agenda.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so with 15 minutes, you know, again, you have to see the deck in play. As you start to basically gain these counters and the ability to fast advance, ideally you'll hit a critical point where it's not cost efficient, really, to actually go the route. It's not really cost efficient to actually go the route of continuously trashing like the corp's assets and upgrades. And as a result, as you start to get more and more of those Astro counters and the Sand gets rezzed, Global Food does look like a very, very good, you know, prospect all of a sudden. Because you've got an Astro counter and you have a Sand in play. So you're installing, you're double advancing, you're moving a counter over, or you're moving 1 or 2 counters over, so boom, you've got 3 points immediately. I think my problem with that is that it still looks at a very, very perfect kind of setup. And I actually dislike that as a result. Your agenda density is worse, but I don't like having that agenda kind of being leveraged as this sort of ultimate combo. The biggest benefit of that is that if you're going for that, again, like I said before, the biggest benefit is if you're going for that sort of combo to get that agenda scored, worst case scenario, the runner only gets 2 for it, they don't get 3. So it's actually not a bad agenda in the deck, I don't think. I mean, if your focus is to get more card slots back, because you're losing you're gaining a card slot back by throwing in that Global Food, if you can justify the other card slot, I think it's totally fine.
No, we played around with other versions of this build here, and Chris asked another good question. He says, "Future is now. What do you think?" Now, Future is now is the card that came out to put 15 minutes in, right?
Yeah.
Can you Future is now? Do you have the exact wording of it? Like it's another search, right? Search on
yes.
the.
Just one moment. Okay. So the Future is now says as soon as it loads. When you score, the feature is now search R&D for a card and add it to HQ, shuffle R&D. That card, when I had it in the deck, was actually doing really, really well when it got scored. You scored it the same as you would with any 3-2. You would only score it off of a Sand. And the ability to basically score an agenda and go after a team sponsorship, a Turtlebacks, a piece of ice, another agenda, because you knew they couldn't get to your HQ just yet. Those kinds of plays could really seal the game. Did a great job of sealing the game. The reason for the switch, obviously, is because, again, it's not a 2-1, and I wanted to make sure that I capitalized on just simply scoring as many agendas as I could out of hand, and especially in the case of the 2-1s, scoring them out of hand without any other card really being necessary to do so.
Yeah, the future is a 3-1, so without a Astro counter or the Sand already locked and loaded, you're not going to be able to keep that pressure going. I mean, right. It is a nice card because it's pretty much, it can be used as a combined fast track like in the deck, right? So
yeah,
double usage. But 15 minutes, I'm really liking 15 minutes because put it behind a taxing server, and if they get it, well, you're just gonna take it back next turn anyway, right? So
yeah, yeah, exactly.
It's no loss. Just take it from their score area and shuffle it in.
I think it's pretty worth it. I do.
Yeah. Plus, it's also a good agenda, to shuffle. Get a full stack shuffle. Sometimes you wish you had a Jackson out just to shuffle your stack. Well, now you're not wasting that one. You're stealing the agenda back. Yeah, I know. Taxing server in NEH. I know. But sometimes there's something. You'll see, like, if you have that little engine or something that with Faust's ability to strip cards away from the runner, right? Like you'll make them double pay for something that they're just gonna lose in a second. Okay. Where was it? Yeah, sometimes you just want that reshuffled. If you're getting beat down on, digs, or somebody does like blast from the past. I got indexed right a while ago, and I was able to.
I hate
use 15 minutes to afterwards, when it came back to my turn, reshuffle that order, right? So yeah. I mean, it's a good ability to have in your pocket, and I'm really digging it. Yeah,
it's definitely like one of the most, if not the most powerful, like 3-1 in the game, right? I mean, 2-1. It's a tutor. Or which one? Oh, you talking about 15 minutes or features now?
15 minutes doing the getting that. Shuffle it back in, right?
Oh yes. No, I love. I mean, that's also really just freaking good. I mean, you can even if every time they take it, you just throw it back in your deck. I just like it. I just like that. It feels sexy.
Let's just hit these comments here from Zach. He says the issue I see is everything together. You have 12 agendas to fit 4 2-1s, but you don't have a payoff of Archer in addition to sponsorships. And people are wise to sponsorship these days, frequently trashing them. Additionally, you have Lotus Field in there, which means rough in a field where both criminals and anarchs are slotting Faust. The 12 agendas punish you when you get flooded, but without Archer, you don't have a benefit of just scoring it. When it's going well, but when it's going badly, you can really suffer. Turtlebacks is nice though, but you don't really net money as you spend the coin you potentially make.
Yeah. So one of the points he makes, of course, is, if you look at the current deck list, Archer's been removed from it. The issue I was finding with Archer is that I was actually ended up rezzing it in so few games. I think I rezzed it in maybe like 1.5. I rezzed total of 2 Archers, I think, during the SMC. And since I've had it in the deck, I actually ended up rezzing it less and less and less. And I think part of that issue, it kept being that I would be maybe at 5. So I would be at 5, and the thing is, I was at a point where, well, the next 2-point agenda score is a win for me, and the opponent is nowhere near, where they're going to just score outright. And I'm looking at the board, and I'm going, well, okay, they can't prevent my win here. CVS is here, I'm at 5. Rezzing this archer isn't what I really want to do here, because then I'm going to be dropping down to 4, and then when I score this other 3-2, or even the 4-2, then I'm at 6 again. So Archer became a card that got rezzed less and less. And I mean, that basically, he says, must be nice. He's like, that's basically what ended up happening, is that Archer, became less and less useful. I will say that in the games where Archer was able to be rezzed, it made a lot of difference. I mean, the card was definitely useful. It felt as though Architect, it feels as though Architect is the right fit, primarily because it's not a card really that can be parasited, even though, technically Archer can, but let's be real, it's so what. It's not a card that can be parasited. It does a pretty decent job of taxing Faust for the cost. And it does force a gear check of a Sentry Breaker like Archer does, but without me losing agenda points. The build is probably a little bit better geared if I'm running. It could be a little bit better geared if I am running Archer. But, I mean, really, in conclusion, I just never found myself rezzing Archer enough to sort of justify it. I think that if I played in a meta where there weren't so many opponents that were running like Sharpshooter in their K decks and things like that, it would make a little bit more of a difference. But unfortunately, I mean, I would honestly say Little Engine has been a bit more impactful than Archer in some cases versus that Anarch matchup. It's kind of interesting. So,
and we can get to that when we hit the ice section up. You can reiterate all that.
Yeah.
But I think that's the agenda suite, and I mean, we have to know that this also isn't set in stone. There's a lot of different combos that can go in and out there, and it's going to take some time to play with it and let it know what flows and what doesn't. This is just the deck that's working right now, and that's why we're covering it.
Yep.
Let's talk about the assets here, man.
Sure.
So I'm going to break down the assets. The only newish card is going to be the team sponsorship. Right. This is whenever you score an agenda, you install a card from Archives or HQ, ignoring the install cost. So this is, for some of the new players, this is where the synergy works around in the deck. It's this card here is helping everything function like cogs. So we have 3 team sponsorships, 3 pad campaigns, 3 Jackson Howards. We have 3 Turtlebacks and 1 Blacklist. That's 13 assets. The interesting part of this is we saw marked accounts last year, and now marked accounts is exited out to make room in there, being replaced, as economy way with the Turtlebacks. NEH is moving towards streamlining that fast advance. Boom, 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 boom. Before it was putting out assets, getting the draw, having the high trash costs of pad campaign and marked accounts, making the runner juggle with that. Do I trash it? Do I give them the money? Kind of strategy there. I really like the addition of Blacklist with the decks out there right now. I saw this kind of fell aside. It came out with a bang. Right. When this came out, it was the bee's knees, man. But you just don't see it anymore, and it's so splashable and it's so nice. But I still play a lot. Those people who run across me on the boards, I still play a lot of IG, and this has never left. I'm swearing by Blacklist how good it's been, especially in this still heavy recursion days. Yeah. I mean, some of the most popular decks right now, of course, are Kate Prepaid
prepaid Kate, Noise, and Max, and all different flavors of Max. And a card like Blacklist, even if they run and trash this card, the fact is that it is a card that you can trigger off of team sponsorship. And in general, it's a card that sort of diverts their attention, even if only for a turn. It helps. It also allows people to. It helps tax clone chips, I guess, or not tax, but they can't use them until this card's gotten rid of. And usually they're going to go the route of trying to trash this card. I really am not sure. This is difficult to state. So you find yourself in a very weird position when you're playing a deck like this that's very horizontal, because a card like Blacklist is obviously useful. You can look at the card and know why it's useful in particular matchups, and you see how it works in tandem with team sponsorship. So it's a card that you can recur back, and they always have to keep running it. I think good runners, will identify what cards need to be trashed first. The sponsorships, the Blacklist, the Turtlebacks. They're going to identify those cards, and Santans. They're going to identify those cards that are going to generate economy. They're going to prevent me from doing what I normally do, and as a result, those cards have to go. The reason why it's difficult to kind of give an opinion of they're just going to run this, that I find for me is always that's part of why this deck works, because the concept here is that the runner has an economy, and eventually what ends up happening is that the runner economy starts to get stifled because they're focusing on a lot of assets and upgrades that end up having to be trashed. They have to pay 5 for the Sand, they have to pay 3 for the Blacklist, they pay 4 for the sponsorship, and so on. So as that keeps happening over and over and over, eventually the runner says, okay, well, I'm not making runs, I'm trashing cards. The thing is, he's still gaining a little bit of money from cards like Turtlebacks. Even though he's not getting to res these cards, I can install them and he's gaining economy. So at some point, the runner is going to hit a point where they have to decide, all right, do I leave things on this field for now for the sake of me being able to make this run? Yes. Okay. Well, how long can I leave this on the field now? It's a tough decision, I think, that you end up with as the runner when you're facing a deck like this, because unless your economy is absolutely stellar, you're going to find it very difficult to actually go about trashing a lot of these cards. So, I think, going back to Blacklist, I think that the fact that it's very good in particular matchups, and you could sensibly end up in a scenario where they're not running every single asset that you create immediately. It could be a card that you sort of wait on their game plan. If I was still, if I was still using Archer, I would say that a card like Blacklist does get stronger with the fact that the Kate decks want to run Sharpshooter, and so that's actually again not a bad idea. If you still want to run Archer, I think Blacklist is still a card that you include.
I agree. I like the including of Blacklist here, and there's even been Sonny in the chat there says Blacklist's been really nice in their decks. It's just a nice addition because people have to get rid of it now. The top tier players that are playing against you in decks have mechanics in them that this fights against.
Yeah.
There was a quick question though from Joshua. He wanted to know, if we're not including Archer, would you cut the agendas back then? I don't think we do that because it loses the synergy of the quick scores. We'll talk about piloting the deck in a little bit.
Yeah.
But you kind of need those to trigger the team sponsorships and get the ball rolling.
Right. Right.
So that's the assets, and obviously these are these are your draw mechanics as well. Triggering with Near Earth's Hub ability is the first time you create a server, you're going to draw a card.
Right.
So those 13 cards are all doing double duty, getting you draws and doing what they're in the deck for. Moving into the upgrades here, there's 5 of them. We have the standard 3 copies of San City Grid, which we've seen since the core set. helping NBN do their fast advance. Then we have the CyberDex Virus Suite. We can talk more about how this card is used in the piloting, but I want to just talk about why this is in there right now as a
CyberDex?
Yeah, as a card choice slot.
Oh yeah. So I mean, a common play that is made that you may see, you'll see time and time again. And in my opinion, any runner deck pretty much that's Kate and Noise and Max now. Maybe not Max so much. You're going to see Clot. And I mean, this is a fast events deck, so CyberDex Virus Suite is a pretty necessary inclusion to make sure that you can purge Clot as they go grab it as a reaction to you installing an agenda and trying to fast advance score it and score it out. So generally the play is, sponsorship will be on a central somewhere, or even in a remote maybe, and I will install the agenda that I'm trying to fast advance. I will advance it. I will ask my opponent if they would like to have any trigger. If they do not have a trigger, I can score my agenda. If they do have a trigger and they go get Clot, I can res CyberDex Virus. I can advance the card again. Res CyberDex Virus Suite, and now because I have basically all those windows are sort of closed now. I've done my advancements. And the Clot is now gone when I purge, I can simply score the agenda. They can't clone chip the Clot back out. That's the reason why you run CyberDex. And then the obvious, combo here is that when you have team sponsorship, as you're scoring an agenda, CyberDex Virus Suite comes back into play. In order to purge with Virus Suite, you have to trash Virus Suite. So Virus Suite comes back into play, just so this combo now can be reworked. You can now purge once again in between, them possibly being able to trigger the self-modifying code or the clone chip to be able to put Clot back in play.
Right,
Bam.
and then obviously that is linked a little bit to the blacklist, because if blacklist is on the table, they're not able to pull that back out.
Right. Exactly.
That's the reason those choices are in there. The CyberDex is to fight top tier decks that are in the meta right now, and Sand has just been that NBN staple since day one.
Yeah.
Again, we'll get back to piloting in a little bit. So we'll move into operations. Operations, we're looking at 7. Nothing really new here. We have 1 biotic labor. We have 1 fast track. 2 shipment from Sansan, 3 sweeps week. Sweeps week's obviously been the staple to make money in NBN these days. We have a little bit of asset economy with Turtlebacks and Pad Campaign. We have, most people will call this a little bit of an economy card here, is the shipment from Sansan.
Yes.
As an additional cost to play it, it's a double. You place 2 advancement tokens on a card that can be advanced. What new players might be thinking to themselves is, you've pulled hedge fund, and
right.
We just had a line in the chat about it. So Hollis, the operations here, or you want to talk about the operation and maybe tie in the economy, because most people play the burst operational economy.
Yeah. So actually, yeah, and Zach even says that'd be more defensible if you had product placement. So no, actually, so Zach is actually right. Let me go into a little bit of detail, and I'm sorry, I'll try not to be too long.
So why don't you actually, if you have the exact wording on product placement?
Yeah, let me.
This is the third or fourth time this has been referenced. So let's let the people know what you're talking about.
All right, where are you? I can't find it. I know it's here somewhere. All right, give me a minute. Here we go. All right, so product placement says, if the runner accesses product placement, it's number 1, it's an upgrade. It is an advertisement. It costs 0 to res, but it is 2 to trash. And the card says, if the runner accesses product placement from R&D, he or she must reveal it. When the runner accesses product placement, the corp gains 2 credits. Ignore this effect if product placement is accessed from archives. Illustrated by Matt Zeilinger, which is just amazing. He does amazing art. So there's a lot of it's not really controversy, but there's a lot of differing opinions on like what's the right choice here. So let me break it down. I've seen 3 cards take the space of hedge fund. Let me start off. I was at 3 hedge fund first. I dropped a hedge fund because, the idea to drop a hedge fund, credit where credit is due, actually goes to Spags. Spags was going into a tournament, and he hit me up about the deck, and of course I hit Zach up about the deck because I had heard the deck from someone else. Man, it's just a long chain. And Spags said, I'm thinking about adding Blacklist. I think it's a really good inclusion. And he basically said, I'm going to do my thing, I'm going to rock it. And he looked for a card slot to drop. As he was playing, I'm assuming he realized that basically he wasn't playing all of his Operation Econ. I'm going to tell you right now, in the tournament I played, also at SMC, I had turns where I could just keep scoring, and because you're always installing a card, you're drawing a card. When I looked at the weakest card in my hand to trash, it was hedge fund, which is so weird to me. So when that was happening, I was like, all right, well, I guess since I don't really have, a lot of great cards. So sorry, make sure credit is due. Spags got that idea from Niles when they were testing this. And so basically, hedge fund ended up kind of going through some changes where it was like, it was at 3, it went down to 2 for the sake of a blacklist. Well, now I've seen 3 different versions of the deck. I've seen the one where I run it, where it's Shimmer from Sand. The reason for that is because often I found myself at a hand of 6, and I got really excited for synergy, and I said, sure, why not install the agenda and use Shimmer from Sand? That way my hand size is down to 5, I don't have to trash anything. So that was the one thing. Then I've seen what Zach is doing, which I actually like a lot, but I have not had the time to play with it, is where you're using product placement. And the idea is that the combination of sponsorships, in addition to the inherent usefulness of product placement, allows you to place team sponsor or product placement on a central. When they run that central, you gain 2 credits. And now they're at this dilemma. They're like, oh man, I have all these assets and upgrades to trash over there, but now you want me to pay 2 to trash this card on R&D? I mean, I don't think I really care, because you have all the money in the world. Why not just let you gain 2, which is a great benefit. And then I've seen my friend Ricky, interestingly enough, actually play around with the card Special Offer. Just so he gets a giant boost in credits immediately. He gains a quick 4, and then Special Offer gets trashed. And he basically does the same thing that a lot of people do with product placement. When he gets a chance in the case where he scores sponsorship and he would normally take the product placement, instead he puts in Special Offer and gains 4 when they run that server. I like all of these. I don't even know, and granted, I know that people in the chat will disagree, people listening later will disagree. I actually don't even think either of these answers is just are garbage. I don't think any of these answers are garbage. I think they're all fine. I think they all are pretty darn good. And I really think it's going to come down to what you play with and what you determine works the best for you, what you like the most. Sorry that was so long.
No, that's good. I mean, I think that's part of the game, is being able to take a deck and pull 1 or 2 cards out, right? And that was the something later on down the road we were going to talk about is possible card substitutions. So that's the reasons for the operations right there. The lack of, so like obviously the biotic, you're hopefully targeting the AstroScript to just get it locked and loaded, right?
That's correct. That is correct.
Fast tracks, standard MBN, and your sweeps weeks get your economy running. Let's run down the ice quickly. We're running 4 barriers, 2 wall of static, 2 wraparound. The wraparound has been a great asset in NBN decks. Get it out cheap, great strength, let them go find their breakers and get set up a little more. The wall of static is just a good solid piece of ice for a barrier choice. Obviously this would be Eli if the influence was there.
Right.
So not much to say about that. getting into the code gates, there's 5 code gates. We have 1 toll booth, your NBN, so why not? 2 pop-up windows. It's pretty much, auto includes an NBN. You're running 1 Lotus Field and 1 little engine.
Right.
Lotus Field is a great stopper because of its ability to not have its strength lowered.
Right.
Little engine, to not divulge too much into this right now. We just know that this is in there because it's such a taxing on another card that has become very popular with runners, which is Faust. To combat Little Engine, you are charging Faust by discarding a lot of cards here.
Yes. Big props to Zach for, I guess, quote unquote, showing me the light about Little Engine. Big props. So good. Card is so good in this particular deck. I love it. I don't think if I can help it, I will never remove it if I can help it.
Most people will say, when you look at it, that last one, the runner gains 5 credits. That's negligible for its strength as a code gate in this current meta that we're facing right now. The last one here, we've used the last little bit of influence and the last card slots on 3 Architect. So Architect is obviously really good, really strong card because it can't be trashed, so it's being paid all the time. Parasite is still out there.
Yep.
So just you want to talk about the ice in general?
Sure.
Anything I missed there?
No, I think you got it pretty well covered. Lady is very, very common, and the problem with Lady being so darn common is that the influence for Eli in a deck like this, where I really wanted to try to have a bit better of a matchup versus Anarch, I think, meant that I really didn't care about the credit loss from Lady. Like that was sort of irrelevant. That was sort of irrelevant. Kate's going to get through your barriers pretty efficiently. So at that point, it was, well, the only thing I'm really taxing here are Lady counters. I really feel like that, Wall of Static and Wraparound just kind of fit that bill. They'll do that. They'll tax Faust. The Wraparound will tax Faust, and Wall of Static and Wraparound both do a decent job if you stack them on centrals, right? To just simply tax Lady counters, so they have to keep recurring Lady. In the Code Gate arena, I feel like it's a little all over the place. It's kind of difficult. I can't decide if I would change something here. I will say this: like pop-up is decent. I kind of do sort of wish that, looking back at it, I kind of wish maybe the Lotus Field could have been another toll booth, if for no other reason but versus Kate matchups. Lotus Field isn't very taxing, and because I already have the little engine for the the Anarch matchup, I felt like toll booth is it's one of the best control ice in the game, and just the ability to throw a toll booth over each of my centrals means that it definitely taxes Kate decks a lot more. They're going to pay 7 credits, right? To get through that when we include that the 3. So I kind of wish sometimes that Lotus Field was instead maybe another toll booth. I will admit it was never impactful enough, really, I think, to justify it being in the deck. But again, that was in those very specific matchups that I had at that time. And then in regards to the Sentry Breakers, or Sentry Eyes. Again, initially I had Archer, and the problem I was running into is that Archer just wasn't getting rezzed. It was a combination of when Archer could be rezzed, I was so close to winning, I would be dropping down to 4, and the Archer res wasn't going to stop the run. It wasn't even going to tax it the way I wanted it to. They had the ability to sharpshooter. So I was looking at it going, well, it really doesn't make sense here. They're only going to run when they Maker's Eye. So having this Archer here is not doing a whole heck of a lot for me. The best thing it does is tax Faust. So in the end, Archer's a better swap, and actually I like that because I think that Architect by itself is just a good ice. It's pretty much always going to be a good ice, and it taxes Faust 3 cards. It taxes Mimic 2, which I think is fine for what Mimic is doing, right, or for what Architect is doing. So I'm okay with this. I think it's a fine ice to have a 3x of.
Perfect. So that's the breakdown, the general shell that we're playing with here.
Right.
Let's move on to mulligans. Okay, so as you're playing, you're drawing your cards. What are we looking for with this deck in an opening hand? Obviously, not agendas, but
Right.
right.
Well,
Sometimes NEH can deal with one agenda very easily in an opening hand, though. I mean,
I think
if you have Jackson to go with it, you can always fix your hand, right? So
right.
I mean, so yeah, so let's talk about what you want to see as a mulligan. I mean, or as a opening draw here.
So ideally, if it was up to me, I probably want to see a turtlebacks and a pad, I think. That way, as I start drawing more cards, the steady flow of assets and upgrades, steady flow of assets and upgrades, gain me some money, help me get through the deck. I definitely want to see a piece of ice or two. I would love to see really anything is fine. I'm actually cool with Architect being my first piece of ice. Just in case. I mean, good runners aren't going to run unprepared, and let you trigger that archer. But, I mean, not everybody's a good runner. So, a card like Architect only adds to how good your deck actually operates. I suppose if I'm looking at it as worlds, yeah, no one, I mean, if we're being real, Architect will probably never trigger, but, it's there. I also kind of want to see... I'm not afraid of seeing an agenda in the beginning of the game. I think the card I don't want to see super, super early, interestingly enough, like immediately, I don't quite think I necessarily want to see team sponsorship immediately. I think I'd rather see Sansan. I want to see team sponsorship just a little bit later, primarily because I want the runner to sort of tax themselves on other cards. I want them to tax themselves on the Sansan. I want them to tax themselves maybe on my blacklist or something like that. Then at that point, that's when I want to actually install the team sponsorship and kind of try to get the ball rolling there with the Sansan City Grid. Zach makes a great point. Zach says, the opening hand is kind of different based on matchup. Like versus Anarch, I would love to see Little Engine immediately. Like opening hand, Little Engine, I would love to see that. That card can single-handedly, kind of save you on one of your centrals. It kind of in addition to that, you could also go the route of saying that a Little Engine might even give you the option to consider scoring behind that Little Engine if you feel like being really cheeky. It presents an opportunity. I know for a fact that one of my games during the SMC, I won because Little Engine was a card that I placed on remote, and looking at their board state as Anarch, there was no way. Like it was just not going to happen. They were not going to be able to get in. I don't know. I like. I think versus Kate, you want to definitely protect R&D as early as possible. Kate's going to have a very easy, a very pretty common strategy. They're going to do the legwork as early as possible, I think, and then they're going to just hammer that R&D. So I think you want to try to toss your toll booth and a toll booth, an architect, and a barrier breaker, or barrier ice as soon as you can, maybe on R&D. Try to score out any 2-1s that you can, trigger up sponsorships, keep recurring back those upgrades and assets.
So you're saying, what ideally in an
top
opening
5
hand? No, what ideally you're looking for in an opening hand is okay. So generally, you want to see team sponsorship a little later,
right?
But you want a playable asset. Maybe Jackson, Pad. Possibly your Sansan.
Yep.
2 pieces of ice would be nice. And then obviously, if you're having a hand with biotic labor, I don't know if I would throw that away.
Yeah, Biotic is a really, really good card to see in the beginning of the game.
Yeah, because I would be worried that it kind of gets buried in the next shuffle, right?
Yeah. It's one of those weird things. Like even versus like noise, right? If I have it in HQ, yeah, they run amp, they can run it and trash it, but that's no different than spamming viruses and then hitting it off R&D, really. It could equally happen when they spam R&D. Right. So I kind of would like to have it as soon as possible and use it as soon as possible, and I think that would be great.
So then getting into the next section here, let's talk about how you pilot the deck build. Opening plays, first turn, people are usually installing an asset to get that draw and looking at that other card right away.
Yep.
Then where do you go first? I know this is situational, so you can talk about the different runners you're playing. If you're playing criminal, you probably want to hopefully drop a piece of ice down over HQ to stop the account siphons coming in. But what, like, Hollis, take us through some openings.
So a common thing that I'll do, and of course, it involves NEH's ability. Often what I'll do is I'll throw down an asset or upgrade first. Hopefully it's turtlebacks or pad. And just get, that engine going where, I can start trying to have some drip economy that's coming in. Or, I guess action-based economy. And then draw my free card. That opens up an additional option. It gives me an automatic draw on my first turn. Helps me see more ice and maybe more econ. That usually is the case. At that point, it's just a matter of trying to like leverage the assets and upgrades versus like how aggressive they want to be with trashing all of those assets and upgrades. I think that the great players, I mentioned this before, and people are talking about it in chat now. Great players are going to be aware of the key cards that basically make the deck run, right? So they're going to be aware of team sponsorship. They're aware of turtlebacks. They're aware of San. And I think they're going to focus on those cards and they're going to get rid of them. So you just so you don't start getting that super early game advantage where things start just happening for what you do for every action that you take. The way you have to sort of leverage that, I think, as Corp is hopefully, if you can, you probably want to try to hit a critical, eventually want to make them hit a critical mass where they go, well, I'm broke. I only have 3 credits. I don't think I can really afford to run all this stuff. It's pretty common, even versus very good players, that what will end up happening is that eventually they get to a point where they go, well, okay, I got a point or two, or they've already got a point. I have to go. I have to check R&D. I've got to check HQ. I cannot keep checking each and every single one of these remotes because now I'm not running the centrals. I'm not gaining economy to run all the centrals because I'm losing it, trashing the remotes. Maybe other people that have played the deck also can discuss this more in chat. I would love to hear what they think. But
so what about for ice placement?
Yeah.
Is there any ice in there that stands out that says this ice must be protecting this server?
That's largely dependent on matchup. I think architects go anywhere, right? But I think that I feel like the little engine, for example, like versus noise, I'm pretty sure I am comfortable taking a little engine and placing it over whatever server I think at that moment in time in the game is going to be the most vulnerable. So for example, if I'm agenda flooded and they're Anarch, I basically could have the game winning scores in hand roughly because of an agenda flood. Little engine probably goes on HQ. Again, wall of statics and wraparounds, they can kind of go anywhere, but of course the rule of thumb you're usually going to follow is if a server doesn't already have a particular ice, type of ice, sometimes you're going to go ahead and place that particular kind of ice on a server that doesn't have one, right? You normally don't stack code gates. It's probably a bad idea to stack. No, it is a bad idea to stack Lotus Field and Tow Booth. So you're going to want to, with ice placement, because there is so little, the goal here is that a lot of the ice are kind of binary, and the goal and the other ice that's not binary is just straight up just taxing for the sake of just making the runner spend credits. I don't ever plan for any of these subroutines to fire. Never. Not a single subroutine. All the ice in the deck is purely there only for the runner to spend more and more credits when they go in. If I'm running against Shaper, that means R&D is of primary concern. That Tow Booth, which is one of the most taxing and control piece of ice, that goes on R&D. Criminal, depends. Can go on R&D, can go on HQ. It just really depends. And then after that, all the other ice is kind of just flexible. It's rare that I ever create a remote. In any event that I do create a remote, it's usually something kind of interesting for the sake of protecting another card that I really want to be able to trigger, like a team sponsorship, like a Sansan. And usually the tax isn't major. It's something like a single architect, since I've iced up so well, something like a single architect that's protecting one card just to overtax them again on the card they're trying to trash,
So
to give myself another window.
So what's your scoring? Like, if you wanted to get an agenda out, I know it's matchup dependent, but just,
Right.
like I said, because this is geared towards a newer player. Where
Oh.
are you working your remote? Like, are you only keeping one piece of ice there? Are you 2 or 3 deep, or are we going to clump the majority over in HQ or R&D here? Like what about the spread?
Oh, yeah. So best case scenario, as you start scoring out agendas from your hand, that means you're going to have less agendas in the hand. So then, of course, that would mean that all of the ice at that point kind of really just goes on R&D. There's not a big incentive for running archives that much unless it's something like a sneaked or beta, because you've got CVS. That's normally you can keep one in the discard pile. So they're not really going to pull out data circuit counters from that. So I tend to protect R&D and HQ equally near the start of the game, with a bigger focus actually, I would say, on R&D over anything else. Unless I'm going against criminal, and then the focus is on HQ, so I don't get siphoned immediately. And then at that point, I just start scoring. As I start scoring agendas out, I move less away from protecting HQ and more towards making sure that R&D is just as taxing as possible, so they don't have the ability to run there every single turn, or at least it means that they want to, if they're going to run R&D, they want it to be a multi-access opportunity as opposed to looking at a single card. It's too taxing to look at a single card. You do that because, by limiting the amount of times they can access and make a successful run, you will have the turns where you needle in or draw up and get the agenda you need or the additional asset or upgrade. So, as a general rule of thumb, because criminal is less common, I feel like, in the meta currently, that might be changing soon. It generally tends to be in the beginning of the game, R&D and HQ basically have the same priority. Ideally, you want to protect them both, but if you only have one ice, I'm usually going to only protect R&D first. I will then throw the next piece of ice depending on what I would throw the next piece of ice depending on how they're running on HQ or R&D after that. As agendas start getting scored and HQ has less agendas, focus is absolutely on R&D. Absolutely. And of course, again, you salt to taste based on the matchup. So versus a criminal, versus criminal, siphon's coming. So do what you have to do to help. I will say the deck is surprisingly siphon resilient though, considering all the assets and upgrades that you do get to res. So sometimes that can be ignored largely. You can, by playing the asset econ and the asset econ, or I guess asset cards
and the shipment helps.
Yeah, and the shipment. Sometimes you can actually just get away with just installing those cards, the assets and upgrades, and if they go for early game siphons, just say, sorry, I res Sansan now. So, you get an access, but you don't get any money, and now, you have to come trash Sansan. Yeah, it is true that you did lose the money, but the biggest benefit of that is they didn't gain the money. That's really why you're doing it. So.
From, some of these assets here, is there any that are majorly important that deserve a piece of ice in front of them?
I think the most important ice that I normally would protect would be things that were, I think the top three to me, and in no particular order necessarily, would be Sansan, team sponsorship, and Blacklist.
Yeah.
I think those cards should probably be protected, because Blacklist is going to just smash face when it's in the right, meta.
Yeah, and obviously if there is a time in the game state when you notice either they've discarded something because of using Faust, or any other, they've just pitched it early game and they think they're going to clone chip something back later.
Yeah.
A protected Blacklist with the read of the board state to not let them in. Like I said, if they've used something to get through, or some people ditch their breakers early game because they're going to be able to clone ship them out when needed on the run. So if you can get a rezzed blacklist with a that piece of ice in front of it, that you got to look for those openings there, because that will swing the game. I just want to read an opening move that Zach added to the comment section here. He said that's
sure.
He said against noise that he would maybe look for a breaking news, then a wraparound, shipments from Sansan, Sweeps Weeks, Enigma, go for a opening hand. That lets you go wraparound on the remote, sweeps, breaking news in the remote. That way, usually, if noise is going to try and get the resources out, so you can then pop your breaking news, tag them, and kill that wild side or ASOPs, whatever they're doing there, turn one. So
that's very good. Zach is the man. I mean, like that sounds like an amazing opening versus noise, because their whole engine is resource based. So the ability to just you ship from Sansan that breaking news. And if that wild side got out early, get rid of it. ASOP's out early if you want, get rid of it. I mean, slow down that game for them, and you could take what is a literal winning start for Anarch and just demolish it and say, sorry, the good life is not here yet. You're gonna have to work a little harder than that. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah. There was some suggestions thrown out here for ices. Someone asked about Paper Wall. Quandary's popular, but as is pointed out in the chat, these they don't last throughout the game. They're pretty much been tagged as parasite food now. Wraparound kind of does the purpose like a Paper Wall or a Quandary of a quick, and it can be a more taxing roll of the dice than this stuff. So sometimes it's good just to drop that wraparound instead of Paper Wall or Quandary. Keep the questions coming, guys. Keep it very interactive. So just throw anything out as they pop into your head. Hollis, the one that I want to touch on is when to use Jackson Howard.
Sure.
I think new players, they hold Jackson Howard for their ability to remove him to shuffle 3 cards from archives into R&D. They forget about his click to draw 2.
Right.
I think that's very important. You'll watch a lot of top tier players put down a Jackson right away, first turn of the game in NEH, res it, and start drawing unprotected. What I mean by that is Jackson is not iced up. You're just drawing up, because then you're able to, at the end of that turn, ditch cards, and if the corporation wants to run him, he's 3 credits, or then you can trash him at that point to kind of adjust your hand, and if you've had to dump agendas from your opening hand, you can do so at this time. So don't be afraid to run an unprotected Jackson Howard. That's very common. Don't be afraid to get him out in the table early game to utilize his draw 2 cards ability. Like I say, I think some people hold him too long. They wait for their hand to flood and then try and get Jackson on the table.
Yeah. Something I like to do with Jackson also, probably not super optimal, but like, especially when I know that, I have multiple, I actually do like, and, team sponsorship, again, doing the work that it does, I actually sometimes will just throw Jackson out. I have no intention on using Jackson. My turn's already kind of set. I just need to gain 2. And Turtleback's going to gain me 1 when I do the install. So I sometimes I'll just throw out Jackson and I'll leave him. And when the runner runs it, I'll say, well, you can trash it if you want to. And they'll trash it. And by the time the next agenda is scored, you paid 3, the same way you do with Sansan. By the time the next agenda is scored, when that sponsorship is res, Jackson comes back. And now, in addition to Jackson coming back, all the other assets and upgrades you've trashed, also I can shuffle back in the deck. So, I don't know. I really, really like, leaving Jackson on the field. and not necessarily popping them immediately. But sometimes, I mean, he's there to fix your board state, when you need him to. So use them when you need.
Yeah. So do you want to talk about the other synergy here? How you're scoring agendas? You mostly popping them, San City Grid, your shipments, or like when for new players, when are you using the fast track that's included in there?
Oh, okay. So often you'll just end up in scenarios. I mean, this happens. This was already happening a lot with NEH decks, but you end up in a scenario where the Astro chain happens, right? So you maybe score breaking news and then an Astro, and then a Bill, because you don't want to just leave that agenda dangling, maybe, and then the game presents itself, and now you go, I res hand Santa, score the last Astro. Well, now you're sitting at 5 points, 5 points or 6 points, whatever the number is, and you're like, well, I mean, I would love to close this game out right now. They trash at Sansan. Well, it's a pretty easy fix. You fast track, go grab one of your 2-1s, install it. That's click 2. Advance it once, click 3, move your counter, score. So I really like fast track in this kind of deck because the deck is very quick, and with the 4-2s that it has, it just lets you just score them immediately. I can say though, in the current build, something interesting that is happening is I am scoring agendas pretty recklessly, and I don't even care. Like that's what's so weird about it, is when I get a 2-1, I'm fine just dropping it, scoring it, dropping it, scoring it.
What about the NAPDs? Are you you leave those unprotected, as bluffs, or?
It's pretty rare. I mean, it is pretty rare that an NAPD actually does get scored. It happens a few times, but usually the reason it happens is just because it's unfortunately the best decision I can make at the time. Right?
Right.
It's not uncommon at all that NAPD is simply just there so the runner can steal it, and then they'll either pay the 4 or they'll film critic it and spend 2 clicks.
I think, man, everything else is pretty much standard there. In this piloting section, can you just touch on again? You just want to talk about the proper way to use, or not the proper way, but just how players can utilize Cyberdeck's virus suite. I think that's the most confusing thing for a new player is where to put that and the timing again. So let's just reiterate that.
Yeah, sure. So if you're playing a fast advance deck, one of the biggest cruxes is crux. Is that the right word? Is the fact that right. One of the biggest issues, one of the biggest issues you'll run into, right, is going to be that if you play a fast advance deck, your opponent, if they're playing a deck that has clot in it, and they have a way to go get the clot as using a tutor or recursion card, so they can use a card like self-modifying code, where they can go get clot immediately, or they can use clone chip to pull clot out of the discard pile. Clot will successfully prevent you from scoring an agenda that you have installed that turn. So the way you handle clot is, it's a virus. So like any other virus, if it has counters on it or another ability, you can purge virus counters. And clot actually says on it, when you purge virus counters, trash clot. The benefit of the deck, and I guess part of the strength of the deck, one of the keys that unlocks the deck is the fact that team sponsorship says when you score an agenda, you may install a card from HQ or archives, ignoring the install cost. So the setup is your opponent has clone chip with a clot in his discard pile, or self-modifying code with clot in their deck. So you res your Sansan City Grid. You install your agenda, then you double advance your agenda. Your opponent says, then you double advance your agenda. Your opponent says, wait a minute, you didn't give me a chance to react. Before you do that second advancement, I will trigger my self-modifying code or clone chip, and now I want to go search my deck for clot and install it. So now you're stuck. In most other games, and without Cyberdeck's virus suite, you would just be stuck. You now can't score this agenda. They're going to get to it. They're going to take the points, and you've lost points and you've lost the effort necessary to score the agenda. What Cyberdeck's virus suite does is it lets you pay 3 and trash it, and then it basically purges all virus counters immediately. The benefit of this is that there's a window you have where there's a window the runner has where basically after you've installed and double advanced your agenda in Res Sansan, they basically get a window somewhere around there. Sorry, someone's going to clarify me and kick my butt for the timing window and not going into more detail. But in the timing window where they can get clot, they then, after getting clot, you then get to trigger any card that you have also in a window, in that same window that purges virus counters. In this case, CyberDeck's Virus Suite, because it's a paid ability. Sorry, you can trigger paid abilities. So they say, I'm going to use my paid ability window to go get clot, and you say, well, that's fine. After you use your paid ability window, I will use my paid ability window and go and res CyberDeck's Virus Suite. And I purge. Well, now all paid ability windows are done. Both you and the runner have had an opportunity to both use your paid ability windows. So now the only thing left is for you to score your agenda, and there's nothing the runner can do about it. Team sponsorship is amazing because after CyberDeck's Virus Suite is trashed, therefore allowing you to purge, when that agenda does get scored as a result of CyberDeck's, triggering to trash clot, now Team Sponsorship says, hey, go to your discard pile, grab that CyberDeck's Virus Suite, and put it right back into play, install it, ignoring install costs. And so when you get ready to score your next agenda, when you want to use Sansan again, when you continue your Astro Train or your Biotic Labor, you get the same benefit you got the previous turn when your opponent attempts to trigger clot again or to install clot again. And what it effectively does is it gives you a way out from kind of being in this weird zone where you have to play around cloneship. You have to play around self-modifying code when clot can be installed immediately. That's the biggest benefit. And that's really, it's one of the main strengths of the deck. Team sponsorship is still very powerful for that reason. The other added synergy here, remember, that when you install agendas and you do your Astro Train, every time you make a new server, Turtlebacks is triggering. So when you install that agenda brand new and then use your AstroScript pilot program counter to score another gen out of hand, once that second agenda is installed, or a third agenda or what have you, Turtlebacks is giving you money. It's giving you the money you need to score the agenda out of hand. And that just continues. When you score a 2-1 agenda, when you install that breaking news and advance events, you gain money for every Turtlebacks you have, and so on and so forth. And basically that's really this, the synergy of the deck is the installs you would normally do that work with what NEH does. You install, draw a card, is giving you money, it's giving you free installs, it's helping your fast event strategy, and the deck does a really good job of bringing all those things together and just working really, really well. So, sorry.
No problems. I think that was very well said. I think it's important to note that CyberDeck's Virus Suite works in every server when accessed.
Yep. Oh, yes, that's right. It triggers when the runner accesses it as well in any server, even in archives when they've already trashed it, and that's quite good. It's just good.
I mean, having it in there for like an archive card for those people that possibly trying to accumulate, free data sucker tokens, trying to do a quick dirty laundry, security testing, desperado runs on open servers.
Yeah.
It's just something that's nice to have in there. I mean, you really probably won't utilize it so much in this build from the archives.
Yeah.
But it's important to know for new players, if you and your friend are playing a lunchtime game, just keep in mind that is triggering when accessed from that server.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's pretty much the playstyle. Guys, make sure, if you always have questions, we do look at the chats after these live streams go to the video on demands. And if you comment there, if you've missed it live, we'll pick up your questions from the chats below. The next thing we can talk about is possible card substitutions when Data and Destiny fully comes out, and we have kind of integrated some of these things into this discussion as we go along. One of the big ones is the 15 minutes, but you talked about some other variants there that you saw. You were saying, Oh man, what was the other card Zach was talking about now? He said it so many times I forgot.
Enigma,
No,
Quandary,
the asset, like
product placement.
Data, yeah. So you know, product placement can be thrown in. You know, because of the one pointers, you can experiment yourself if you want to make substitutions with Archer. You know, if you want to run two architects, you know, one Archer. You know, try it out. We're not saying don't. Remember, when you look at these guides, take them as a it's an upgrade. Sorry, buddy. Thanks for the correction. Take these guides as shells. You know, make sure that you know, you are putting your own twist and trying things out, and let us know also if you try something out with great success. But you know, Hollis, was there any other standouts that we should say that can be swapped in and out that you've seen?
There's a few interesting changes that I've seen. I have been lately playing a max siphonless, also courtesy of Spags, and I will say that it's been wrecking a lot of decks. And I will say that even though this deck can be siphon resilient, there's, you know, you have to get the right amount of assets to kind of keep up. That way you can just go to 0 and they're not really gaining that econ. So I feel like it might be worth it to consider a card like Crisium Grid. I don't know how you fit it in, but a card like Crisium Grid can go a long way for siphon spam decks. It also can go a long way for protecting your R&D a little bit more. When Kate's going to use, you know, those Maker's Eyes often, it may not be such a bad idea to have that card tossed in on R&D, where you have to go through a toll booth and X number of things, and then they do the Maker's Eye. Here's my Crisium. Sorry, you only get to access 1. Do you want to trash it and pay 5? I think that's a pretty good card to have to put in the deck, you know, to put in the deck right now, especially since some of the best decks I've seen are all based on runner, you know, operations. Another card that I've seen a lot of people kind of play with is, you know, I've mentioned it earlier when we started. Global Food Initiative doesn't seem like a horrible idea. I'm not sure what you cut from the deck to put it in. It may be that if you want, you can. I mentioned that I would love to have 2 toll booths. If you want, maybe that's the direction. Maybe you go -1 Lotus Field, you know, reduce the agenda density since you're not running Archer anymore. Put in the Global Food Initiative, and now you've actually gained a deck slot, right? Because you maybe even 2 deck slots. So I actually think that also could be a fair trade. The deck slots you gain back could be the product placements. It could be the special offers. They could be pop-up, you know, an additional pop-up window, or, you know, anything like that. I think those are actually really good inclusions.
We had a quick question in the chat.
Oh, sure.
Asking, how about license acquisition to swap in for breaking news? And I think that basically goes to the advancement count on license acquisition compared to the breaking news, right? We're trying to keep the pace and the ability to score agendas. You want to be able to score agendas fairly high because of the synergy stuff. You put in a 3-for-1, and you know, you're going to struggle to get 1 point where these breaking news in the 15 minutes, you're just able to get them out in 1 turn, and then you're able to capitalize on the team sponsorship synergy.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be great. I mean, if license acquisition was a you know, 2-for-1, its abilities would be perfect.
Yeah.
But
it also be really strong though. It'd be crazy.
The thing you have to think about is keeping a deck build. When you look at deck building, you don't want to get too convoluted. And the synergy here with team sponsorship and the NEH and abilities with the draw and keeping things going, you just want those quick agenda scores. I was trying to think of a different way to put it, but kind of just, you know, backtracked. But you know, from the flip side of that, though, you know, we just had Zach say during his testing, license acquisition is actually pretty solid. He's tried it and it's fine. I don't know how you can go from saying that it was pretty solid to fine. But the future is now was superior, and he liked that. With Data and Destiny coming out, like we said at the beginning, we pulled the future for 15 minutes.
Yep.
So, Hollis, you got anything else to kind of say in wrapping this up? I think this is a good cover of this guide for,
Yeah.
for what we've brought to the table here. Okay, so what is this deck's worst nightmare? Or do you want to talk about since you let's kind of hit this quick so we don't drag this on.
Sorry.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the worst nightmare and maybe how to play against it, since this will probably be out there a lot?
Yeah, these guys basically they're throwing out a lot of really good suggestions, and the thing is, being totally candid, Kate is probably one of the strongest. PVP prepaid Kate is one of the strongest, if not the strongest. Runner deck available that you can play. It's basically a big toolbox with a lot of answers with good economy. So any runner deck that can keep up like that, I feel like I could play any corp deck and Kate stands a pretty good chance. Zach makes a good point. I mean, any NEH fast advanced deck, Kate is probably a good matchup for. I think that's one of the deck's worst nightmares, is just a really solid Kate matchup. You probably need them to have a little bit of bad luck, and you have a little bit of good luck. I also feel like one of the hardest matchups that I could think of would actually be Andy running bank jobs, because the deck runs a lot of assets. Yeah, a lot of unprotected remotes. So ton of bank jobs, ton of security testings. Andy just gains money. There's 3 security testing out. Yeah, gain 3. I run bank job. That's absurd. Effectively, Andy could make a run every single turn. It wouldn't matter. So I really think that's really strong. Noise is strong, but I think that with breaking news, if you're really careful and you're really good at piloting the deck, I think you're fine. It's still a hard matchup. Still a very hard matchup. Wizard, I think, also very good, but again, Wizard has his own problems. You do get a discount to trash everything, but you have to have an economy that's supporting you just gaining regular credits as well. Anarchs traditionally don't have an amazing economy suite, not like a prepaid deck. So yeah, you're saving money by trashing, but you're losing actions, and you need to be able to gain money as efficiently as possible. So eventually you have to slow down runs to make the money, and now when you're making runs, you're getting a discount, but you're not running central. It's tough, man. It's a hard world out there for runner right now, I think, and for corp. So
it's hard out there for a runner, right?
Yeah, man. I would say worst 3 matchups. And again, I'm spitballing. I'll probably forget one. Yeah, right.
It's hard out there for a pimp.
It's hard out there for a pimp, man.
I've seen Hustle and Flow.
It's hard out there, man.
I know what it's like down south.
My man Terrence Howard said to me yesterday, he said, man, I'm having a really hard time playing against Kate prepaid decks, having a really hard time playing against siphon spam decks, when I have a bad start. And I'm having also a pretty difficult time playing against noise. I think
that's
that
your boy
those
Lucius Lion.
My boy Lucius Empire. I think those matchups are very, very good.
There's some agreeing here, and the worst 3 are Kate, Leela, and Andy.
Leela and Andy, they're just good.
Bounce.
They're just good. I didn't say criminal primarily because honestly I haven't admittedly played much criminal. I think that if this deck is one of the most played decks, I definitely can see Andy and Leela played more than they have been in the past couple of months.
It might be an out of nowhere thing. I've seen a lot of people talk about testing going on with Andy right now for prepping for Worlds. So it might be something that just comes out of the back pocket. Should we give credit to Zach?
Hey man, Zach,
wasn't he never give up on Andy?
he said he wouldn't. Like he said he would never give up on Andy, and then it started to die down, and people were like, I don't know, man, I don't think we should play Andy. And now everyone's playing this NEH deck, and it's like Zach is just kind of sitting back, going, I told you what was going to happen. I knew before it happened.
Sweet.
That this would be the case.
There needs to be a new comic, right? Everyone versus Sweet Zach Havitz or something.
Yeah. Sweet, awesome B Blum and Hella Cavis.
Yeah. I told you.
I told you, bro. Sorry. Zach is probably losing it right now.
Guys, thanks again for hanging out with us. We had a great turnout. If you like what we're doing, like and subscribe. Let us know if there's a top tier deck that we'd like to open up other segments and content on this channel and this through this podcast. So if we've seen a lot of people ask about teaching and about I'm new to the game, and that kind of helps. So that's why we wanted to step through something like this episode. So if there's something that's out there that you like broken down like this, if you're having trouble with a particular deck, playing it, understanding it, let us know, and we'll put together one of these little video guides or audio guides for you to keep you company in the car for your ride home.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Hollis. Any take us out here, man. I'm stumbling to close.
I guess jumping on top of and adding to what Zach said. I really feel like I said Zach. I meant Jameson. Sorry, I read Zach's comment and immediately said his name for yours. No, Jameson. I totally agree with what you said, bro. Like I really feel like if you're a newer player or intermediate player and you really want more of a breakdown for a lot of the decks that you commonly see played, maybe you've seen an amazing deck and you're like, I just don't quite understand why everyone is so into this. Maybe you see a deck that maybe you see a card that you think is very, very good and you're wondering why no one's playing it. Definitely, send us messages. Be open with us. We're not closed as far as communication goes. I know Jameson spends a good portion of his time, talking to people in the community. I spend a good portion of time talking with people in the community. If you guys have a card that you want to just chat about or want us to cover on the show, a deck, archetype, that you want us to cover on the show, bring it up. Obviously, we can't catch everything, but we want to make sure that we're providing you guys with things that you want to listen to, that you want to hear about, and are really interested in. And we want to also, it's the same way we grow as players. We want you guys to grow as players. We want you guys to keep watching. So if there's any content you want to see, deck lists, cards, you want us to talk about, let us know. And with that, during the outro, that's I'm Hollis.
I'm Jameson.
Bam. And we are A&R Bad Pub. And thank you guys so much for tuning in this week.
Cheers, guys.